To talk more about the federal government's new measures, Anita Anand is the president of the Treasury Board. She's with us now. Hi, Minister. Great to have you back on the program. I appreciate you making the time today.
Great to be back with you, Bashi.
Minister, your party originally promised the GST waiver for rental builds back in 2015. Small businesses have been asking for an extension for CEBA for months. And an entire year ago, in September of 2022, StatsCan told us that increases to food prices were the largest since 1981. Is your government only pursuing action now on any of this because of your party's declining popularity?
Not at all. We are focused on affordability issues, on housing, for example. We have the National Housing Strategy, $80 billion, the Rapid Housing Initiative, $4 billion, and as well, we have now the suspension of the GST on purpose-built rentals. And that is an incentive that will encourage the increase in supply of housing at a time when there is demand and need in the system. And on food prices, of course, we addressed that earlier this year with the grocery rebate, and we'll be calling in the big grocers to account on Monday with Minister Champagne. So there's more work to do. But I'm very positive about the steps that we've been taking and that we will continue to do to be at the table on the issue of affordability across the country.
Let me just pick one of those and respectfully challenge you, Minister, because the issue of grocery prices, for example, grocery prices have been rising at record rates for well over a year now. Even that example I used, September of 2022, StatsCan said in black and white, this is the biggest increase in food prices since 1981. The grocery rebate, for example, that you refer to, it was an extension of the doubling of the GST rebate, which already existed. You did not entertain the NDP's option for an excise tax on those corporations previous to this point in time. And all of a sudden, your government comes out with a slew of these announcements, which coincides directly with the widest gap the Tories have had over the Liberals since 2015. Is that a coincidence?
It's actually not all of a sudden, Bashi. Think about the Canada Child Benefit, for example, which has lifted over 500,000 children out of poverty. Families receive funding under that benefit and can attribute it to wherever they like, including to groceries. So our family has been at the table for vulnerable Canadians and on affordability issues. Another example, $10 a day childcare. That is allowing families to go back to work post-pandemic, and we are seeing increased numbers of individuals entering the workforce and unemployment numbers way down. And the issues that you're relating to poll numbers, etc., that's not what's driving these issues. We're here for Canadians.
And Minister, I'm certainly in no way trying to insinuate that you haven't done stuff like the Canada Child Benefit and it hasn't been very effective, or the daycare subsidy. The challenge that Canadians, I think, and reflected in those polls have presented to your government is, why now are you prepared to meet the moment, and why not before, at a time when you could have made a bigger difference to people who are suffering under the weight of the cost of living crisis in this country?
So there is no one silver bullet to address the rising cost of living. And so what you are continuing to see our government do is to take steps on the high prices of food, on affordability and housing, and on helping families and the most vulnerable across the board. And we are continuing to do that. As I said, there's no silver bullet. And certainly on housing, we are going to need to continue to cooperate with provincial and municipal governments. Just after we announced the suspension of the GST on purpose-built housing, for example, British Columbia, Newfoundland said that they were going to also do the same within their jurisdiction. And so what we are looking for here is continued collaboration, but the federal government will continue to do its part to assist vulnerable Canadians during this time on affordable issues that are facing Canadians.
I just quickly make the point that your government your party first identified that policy as a potentially effective to address the housing crisis back in 2015, got rid of it in 2017, and now all of a sudden, all these years later, are enacting it when it could have incentivized that type of rental building many years prior, and we perhaps could have avoided an average rent in August of more than $2,000.
I'd like to say in response that market conditions change, and they certainly have changed since 2015 to 2023. And what we are doing is responding in a very systematic way to the challenges relating to housing, relating to food, relating to childcare, relating to families in need right across the board. That's what progressive governments do. And I will remind your viewers that on many of those occasions, the Conservatives voted against us in the House of Commons.
For Canadians who are watching right now, that meeting with the grocery store CEOs that's happening Monday, tomorrow, is the objective for Canadians to actually pay less for groceries? Like, what can they expect specifically by Thanksgiving?
Minister Champagne is calling the big grocers in on Monday to account for the high price of groceries while they are able to make record profits. The issues that Canadians are facing with the high cost of food need to be addressed, and those prices hopefully will be coming down as a result of that meeting. The Prime Minister said that if prices do not come down by Thanksgiving, additional measures will be taken, and our government has not ruled out the possibility of the use of tax measures to address the high cost of groceries.
Your government did, the Prime Minister specifically did in the past, a number of months ago when the NDP brought it up, rule that out because he said it was an effective policy. He said it would, that the cost of that excess tax or extra taxation would be passed on to consumers. Why, again, all of a sudden now, all these months later, is it now potentially appropriate?
As I said, market conditions change, and therefore we need evergreen policies so that we can be nimble and nuanced and address changing market conditions. And that's exactly what we are doing.
With respect, Minister, what market conditions have changed over the last year when it comes to the price of food? Like I pointed out, StatsCan said the biggest increase occurred since 1981 in September of 2022, 1 year ago. Why is a wealth tax or an excess wealth tax, whatever you're going to call it, why is it appropriate now and it wasn't then? Again, is this just all about confronting a feeling among Canadians that your government has not been prepared to meet the moment in this cost of living crisis?
The government of the day needs to support its citizens, and that's exactly what we're doing, and we're going to continue to do that. Another measure that we are taking on board is to overhaul the Competition Act and to ensure that it can be utilized in an effective manner if there is undue competition. And so you are going to continue to see our government step up with innovative solutions to address affordability across the board in terms of food prices, in terms of the cost of housing, and in terms of affordability generally. That is the role of our government, and that's the one that you will continue to see us play.
And I do appreciate that, but Minister, that doesn't answer the substance of my question. What has changed that all of a sudden now your government is considering taxing corporations to a greater degree than it had a year ago when food prices were already very much on the rise?
Certainly food prices were on the rise and the cost of living has continued to increase. And so it is clear that the market itself is not going to bring those prices down. That's why we need to move to additional measures, meeting with the heads of the grocery chains, making sure that we are incentivizing additional housing over and above the National Housing Strategy and the Rapid Housing Initiative that we have on the table. Again, we are prepared to look at innovative and nuanced solutions to address directly the problems that are confronting Canadians, and we will continue to do that so that we are addressing the high cost of living and rising inflation.
Minister, I have to leave it there. I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vashi. Take care.